Okay, Andy from Lord. Welcome to Nightbreed. How's things?
Very good, mate. Thanks for having me on, and I'm looking forward to having a chat. I've been limbering up my vocal cords.
Very good. Well, I got a lot to ask you, so beautiful. So 2005, you got together with Lord Tim, right? Because the Lord was a solo thing and then became something much larger than that, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I guess the long story short, and I'll give a little extra background as well. So 1989, going way back,
Yeah,
uh, in Dungeon was formed,
yeah.
and that was Tim. So he kicked that off in Broken Hill, and then in the mid '90s moved it to Sydney. And I'd been a massive Dungeon fan, like over the years, like huge.
Yep.
And I was living in Brisbane at the time, grew up there, um, and so was kind of just more of a punter and more of a fan in the local scene up in Brisbane. But connected with the Dungeon guys, got to see them play up in Brizzy a few times, and yeah, it must have been 2005 because they started coming up to Brisbane a bit more and playing, and they were ready to go overseas and to Europe with Megadeth, and I was going to go over there basically just to go to festivals and drink beer. Like that was
Yeah,
that was my agenda. And
perfect.
I'm like, hey, I'll be over there when you guys are over there. And long story short, I end up being their roadie on the Megadeth tour, doing their lights and I guess carrying beers and drinking their rider and everything like that.
Beautiful.
But
Yeah.
yeah, towards the end of that, and they also played a few weeks in Japan, so we were away for a few months. And towards the end of that tour, there was a little bit of tension within the band and some thoughts about I guess the future of the band, and um, there was some initial discussions around the future, and the guys knew I played a little bit of bass, but not a lot. They said, "Oh, do you want to join the band?" I thought, "Oh shit, maybe. I guess I might have to move to Sydney." And so that kind of got put on the back burner when everyone got home, and Dungeons end up doing some final shows that year under the Dungeon name, and then yeah, beginning of 2006, I moved to Sydney, and then we kicked off Lord. And as you said, Lord had been a bit of a solo project of Tim's, which he started around 2003, I think.
Hmm.
And it was always just a little bit of a passion project for him, but he made the decision, oh, stuff it. I want a little bit more variety in what I do. I don't want to be pigeonholed as just the power metal band under the Dungeon name. So I'll keep doing Dungeon stuff, but just do it under this new name, kind of like a new era of the band.
Hmm.
So yeah, we kicked off the next era of the band late 2005, but more so early 2006. And I didn't expect to be in the band for long. I really thought, oh, this is the first time moving out of home. I was just a little youngin,
Hmm.
moving interstate, the big bad big world of Sydney, the big smoke, and I expected to be home within a few weeks with my tail between my legs. But I don't know. It's 2023. And I'm still in Sydney. I'm still,
Yeah.
I'm still in this damn band. So it kind of worked out.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, 2006, you guys played, Lord played the first live show. What was going on in Sydney with that sort of, other than Dungeon, of course, what was going on in Sydney with the sort of power metal, heavy metal thing around that time? Do you sort of remember what was happening there?
A little bit. I mean, I think for us, um, I think the style of music, like since then, I guess, and especially over the last probably 10 years or so, there's certainly been a lot more traditional metal bands, some power metal bands, some more melodic stuff that's popped up over the more recent years. But I think at the time we were still sort of coming out of this. Well, I wouldn't say out, but we we're still going through this period where extreme metal is huge, and it's always been huge. It's still huge, it's probably even bigger in some respects today, especially death metal. But at the time, like especially for me growing up in Brisbane, it was black metal and death metal, and that was my bread and butter. That's all I knew. And so some of my favorite Aussie bands, sort of in that domain. And so when we were playing in Sydney to begin with, we were playing mostly with. I'm just trying to think of the first few gigs. We were certainly bringing bands interstate to play with us in Sydney, but we were playing with sort of more doomy bands, bands that might have melodic vocals but are a little bit more sort of ambient style, a bit more sort of gothic, just for, I guess, the hope of a bit of crossover, just because we're both singing melodic vocals. But we're playing with a few thrash metal bands as well, which certainly had a bit of crossover because we were certainly playing thrash and speed metal type music as well. And then Yeah, we would do a lot of mixed bills, heaps of mixed bills. So you'd rock up to a gig and you get a bit of everything. Variety is a great thing, but sometimes it was really tough playing some of those shows, especially if we were the odd ones out.
Yeah,
We really had to dig deep and sort of persevere through it. But yeah, I think there were some prog metal bands as well. I think I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I think it might have been a little bit too early for bands like Darker Half. I think Darker Half came in probably a year or two after that. Really, and they were sort of like the band that were very similar, and I think took a lot of inspiration from Dungeon. And there was another band called Transcending Mortality, which were very prog metal
yeah,
kind of stuff. So there's a few bands like Canthea, which is a very doom metal band. They're playing around quite a bit at the time. And the first Lord show in Sydney, we actually played with Voyager.
yeah,
So
nice.
Voyager came over, and I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this was Voyager's first ever Sydney show. So from what I could recall, I might be missing a band, but there was a thrash metal band called Rampant, and I don't think they're around anymore. I think they sort of came back a couple of times since then, but I think they're inactive. And then there was Voyager, and then I think it was us. I think it was a 3-band bill. And we played at the Empire Hotel on Parramatta Road in Sydney, and it was a little bit of a trial by fire, a bit of a deep end sort of gig for me because I'd only played a handful of shows up in Brizzy beforehand, but it was good. It sort of got the ball rolling.
Mm. Well, I mean, yeah, it went well because the same year you opened for Queensryche, Nevermore, Gamma Ray, like a huge list of bands, right? Like,
Yeah, it was
yeah,
cool. I mean, personally for me, like so fortunate
mm,
because I think I had played in a local band in Brisbane called Sedition,
yeah,
very much inspired by like Queensryche and Halloween, Iron Maiden, that kind of stuff.
mhm,
Very much the oddball band out up in Brisbane. Um, but we didn't really, I don't think I even played a show with them, but I did plenty of like we were recording bits and pieces and a lot of rehearsals. But I played a couple of shows with like a 70s, 80s rock band called Mobster. And so I didn't really have the the tough early period of forming a band, grinding it out, playing to no one, and just doing those really like those tough years to really sort of earn your stripes. And I mean, I earned my stripes in a different way, but I didn't go through that same experience. And so that first year was insane because we immediately had a fan base.
mm,
We had the Dungeon crowd, and I think there's a lot of division about what we would be like, and a lot of people for a while thought that we were a lighter version of what Dungeon was. So we had a lot to prove, but a lot of people came out of curiosity as well as just being excited to see us play. So we got really lucky, and I think that also gave us an advantage when it came to tour supports. So when Queensryche came out, when Nevermore came out, Gamma Ray, we even did oh god, I think it was that year we did Leaves Eyes at the Manning Bar. There's a few other things, but we did some East Coast runs as well. So we sort of hit the ground running, but I think we kind of just kept the momentum going from the previous year as Dungeon and just kind of crossed our fingers and hope that everyone could connect the dots and work out we're the same band. And it kind of worked. And we just used that momentum and just kept going after that.
yeah, that's cool. So 2007, the Ascendance album comes out on Modern Invasion Music. I mean, I don't know about you, but that was a big deal for me. Like a lot of my CDs had that little sticker on the back, you know. But you're credited as songwriting on that, yeah. So how was that coming in and like working with Tim and everything to write?
Yeah. Funny about Modern Invasion because I've got an email from Daniel from Modern Invasion that I need to reply to. He sent me an email yesterday, so we're still very much in contact, although we don't have a sort of a working relationship with Daniel anymore. Yeah, we're still he's a character. We're still very much in contact.
Yeah,
But yeah, Ascendance was my first real, I guess, experience in contributing songwriting. I did play on the last Dungeon album, which I think actually by the time it all got compiled came out in 2006. So even though the band had finished, the final chapter was the final chapter of the Dungeon era. So I played on a couple of tracks on that album. So I got a little bit of experience going through the motions and working with Tim. Tim's very much got a set of his own way of doing things, and he's been doing it for so many years. So I had to sort of walk in there and feel it and kind of work out, all right, how does he tick? How's it work? So I kind of got over that learning curve. curve, which was good. And we also did a recording on a Dimebag tribute CD called The Art of Shredding, where we recorded the song Shattered
Mm,
from Cannabis from Hell.
yeah.
So I recorded that song. That was that cover that we did. So I had a little bit of experience, but going into writing, I was pleasantly surprised because I think he's so fixated on making sure that no one thought that this was a solo band. He wanted to move away from what Lord was originally, that solo
Mm,
project for him, and he wanted to turn this into the next era of Dungeon, Lord, a full-fledged band.
yeah.
So he wanted everyone to contribute. He wanted equal stakes, which was super cool. And it took a lot of pressure off me in some respects. In other respects, I'm like, oh shit, I don't know, have I got some riffs or something like lying around?
Mm,
And yeah, so I contributed a few little things to that album. Just a few little, there's an acoustic sort of intro called The Calm, and I'm pretty sure I might be on Limb from Limb. I can't remember all the credits. Oh, Reborn as well. So there's a few things there, and yeah, the funny thing about it, and it was also a couple of the subsequent albums. Growing up playing guitar, like I played guitar to begin with. I mean, I played other musical instruments when I was younger in primary school, but in high school picked up guitar. And the only reason I went to bass was probably a very typical bass player story, is that everyone played guitar, no one wanted to play bass, and I wanted to play in a band more so than I wanted to play guitar. So I'm like, all right, bass it is. So I'm playing bass. So it worked out. But I had all these really horrible, shitty like recordings of like guitar riffs and melodies, and I had like really juvenile lyrics and things, all tucked away, hoping for a rainy day at some point. So I end up contributing the stuff that's on Ascendance and even a couple of the subsequent albums. It's stuff that I came up with when I was 16, and
mm,
it's just insane because when I'm thinking back to like recording this like on a home PC at my parents' place, who would have thought that they'd end up on some kind of metal album later on down the track? I would have pinched myself and gone, no way, these shitty little riffs, no chance. But that's the good thing about Tim as well. He can listen to something that sounds like absolute garbage, like sonically, and even sometimes playing is sloppy and horrible, but he can get the gist of the idea. And sometimes he just needs the idea, and that sets him off, and off
mm.
he goes. So yeah, it was a very eye-opening experience. It was extremely empowering for me because it started to give me validation that I'm where I'm meant to be.
Mm.
And yeah, when that album came out, I mean, such a novelty for me. I got on I was living in Marrickville, and I got on a bus, met up with a mate of mine, and we walked into Utopia Records to go and buy the album. I was at the counter, and a guy who was working there at the time, Giles, who now lives in Germany, sings in a band called oh god, Warlord, and he's just, anyway, that's a different story altogether. But he was at the counter. He's always got like this deadpan look, and he just looked at me and looked at the CD, and he's like, "Why are you buying your own CD?" And I go, dude, just please, just humor me. Let me buy it. I paid like $25 for this damn CD, but I'm like, nah, this is the best. This is so cool. Open it up. Here's my noggin in the booklet. I thought, it doesn't get better than this. So yeah, good memories, really good memories.
That's cool. And yeah, on that album, you've got a couple of solos from Chris Brooks, who literally wrote the book on speaking. So was he mates with you guys or something? How'd you get together with Chris?
Yeah, Chris, I think Chris goes way back with Tim, and I can't recall exactly how they hooked up and what. I'm pretty sure they've done some projects together, and I don't know whether Chris has contributed to something in Dungeon's early stages. I can't remember. But anyway, Sydney-based, yeah, shit hot guitarist, insane player. But yeah, he knew Tim from quite a few years ago, and Ascendance was kind of the start of trying to, or at least for a little while, trying to get some guests on and just get some different contributors to the album, just so it's not just us, and just keep it fresh and exciting. And yeah, Chris certainly. And funnily enough, a few years later down the track, when we had some sort of personnel challenges in the band, and we still had to tour, Chris ended up filling in for a couple of shows in all places, Perth and Kalgoorlie.
Yeah.
It was insane. So yeah, Chris came out, and I think he was a bit of a fish out of water, because it's like he loves the music. He certainly plays the style of music as far as, lead guitar, but on stage with a metal band, you could definitely tell he's like, whoa, this is not what I'm used to. I'm not used to doing this kind of stuff. I'm used to just being a god, virtually, and doing all my shred classes. So
Yeah,
it was cool.
yeah, that's cool. So 2008, you guys did the Saxon support tour. That must have been something, yeah. Like,
Yeah, yeah. For me, it was amazing. That was definitely a bucket list thing for me. Not that I, in the back of my mind, was thinking, oh, one day I hope to tour with Saxon, but one of the first few records I bought was Rock the Nations by Saxon, which, in retrospect isn't the best Saxon album out there.
yeah,
It's pretty
it's cool.
cringe actually. But
Yeah, Saxon are great, sorry.
yeah, but yeah, I bought that from Rocking Horse. No, no, the Record Exchange in Brisbane, and I bought it purely because of the album cover. I thought this is a shit hot album cover. This looks really cool. So I took it home and listened to it. I think there's a song on there called "Party to Your Puke" or something, and it's the worst song. Anyway, as you do, you dive into the whole back catalog, and I was just like, they're one of my all time favorite bands, like insane band, and certainly had this like in like late 90s into the 2000s, had this injection of energy, and their production is sort of like what happened to Motorhead as well, where their production just got so ballsy, so heavy, and just really, really cool. And so yeah, we got the tour support for that, which was great. Unfortunately for the poor guys in Saxon, Melbourne was good because Melbourne's always good. Sydney was not too bad. Brisbane was really tough. We played at the Zoo, and I'm pretty sure we gave away half the tickets just so we could half fill the room. But to their credit, I mean, they're professionals. They've been doing it for decades. They played like they were playing in front of 10,000 people, and they were super cool with us, super gracious, listened to us waffle on and say how much we loved them. And they told lots of great stories. And even in Sydney, I think some of the guys from Heaven, the old Aussie hard rock band, came out and said hi to them, and they must have crossed paths back in the 80s or something like that. So it was just cool to be around like old road dogs, like, and you could go, oh, these like, and then you sort of think the web of like new wave British heavy metal and who they influence, like Metallica and all those bands, and they're a legacy band, but they're so respected. So for me, I was just like, I mean, what do I know? I'm just this young kid playing heavy metal in Sydney, and here I'm playing with these metal gods. So it was it was really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And Saxon is still going strong, like their later releases are still really decent.
Amazing,
Yeah,
amazing,
yeah, it's
really
cool.
cool.
So the Hear No Evil EP comes out on Dominus Records, like Lord run Dominus Records, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we after Ascendance, I think what happened with Modern Invasion is there was a legacy contract with Daniel from Dungeon. So Tim had put his first solo album, A Personal Journey, out through Modern Invasion, and I think what Daniel had worked out is that he would do two Lord albums, and at the time they expected Dungeon would continue. And I think the final chapter was also fulfilling that agreement as well. So we had Ascendance, which was kind of just to tie off the relationship with Modern Invasion. We had a great, I mean, from what I could, experience, I mean, I wasn't there for all of that Dungeon period, but the tail end and doing Ascendance and working with Daniel, he was great. I mean, he's proven himself. He's created a legacy in his own right. I mean, exactly what you said. I mean, I look around me at my CDs and I see those bloody triangles everywhere. Like it's some of the stuff that I didn't even know was imported or released through Modern Invasion. You can see their little logo on the back inlay. So, really happy for the time we we're working with him. But I think we're getting to a point where, and Tim was really the driver in this. I mean, he was really excited about taking ownership of everything and seeing what we could do with what we've got. And we had sort of bad experiences with labels overseas as well, which certainly strained relationships and made it hard to make decisions on how the music would be released, and even visually artwork, some dodgy artwork that'd been put out previously. So so I think Hear No Evil must have been the first. Yeah, it must have been the first sort of test just to see, how does this work? Can we do it? How complicated is it? And yeah, it kind of worked, and it sort of set us up for what would come next.
Yeah, that's cool. And how does that work? Like, do you have different roles within, doing label stuff, or is it kind of like one of you sort of take the lead on that?
Yeah, I think at the start, going back to what Tim was hoping with the band, where we would all have equal stakes. So Dominus Records was created, and we formed a partnership. So we all had equal stakes, and I guess in theory, on paper, we would all equally contribute to the running of it, but it doesn't always work like that. And it's like a band. Yeah, you kind of hope that everybody in the band does this, pulls their weight in the same way. But I think over time, we certainly learned that people have got strengths in different areas, and so you have to let people thrive and blossom, for a lack of a better term, where they're comfortable and where they can excel, rather than forcing them to do things that they're not comfortable with. So it ended up being Tim and myself, really, that sort of drove it. And then in more recent years, we made a decision, I mean, legally, we just moved it back into Tim's name and removed the partnership aspect. It was just removing some of the complexity around it. But Tim sort of oversees and makes some of the bigger decisions with Dominus, but I'm pretty much running day to day with everything that we've been putting out. All the inventories with me, all the negotiations and all that sort of stuff, and sort of just bounce stuff off Tim when necessary. So he's got his little minion Andy running the shop.
Yeah, cool. You guys have done, some live recordings, 2009 live at the Metro, and 2017, of course, the Prompt Power USA. How is that? Like, I've never recorded live before. That's got to be something different, yeah?
Yeah, it's a bit scary.
Yeah.
And it's an eye opener, because you sort of look back on the 80s in particular, where a lot of us grew up listening to some of those classic like metal live albums, and even the 70s with the stuff recorded in Japan. And you sort of look at it, it sounds amazing. And then you realize that there does need to be a little bit of studio wizardry that happens post recording as well. Like when you record these things, they can never be perfect. But like the Live at the Metro one was a bit of a trial, just to capture the first, I guess, incarnation of what Lord was, because we had a bit of member changes at the end of 2006. So at the end of 2006, we did a headline show at the Metro, which I don't know if we'll ever do that again. That was pretty cool. We got lucky with that one as well. But we recorded that. Audio wise, sounds really good. Visually, we basically got people to record on camcorders, and we kind of made it like a bootleg vibe. So not overly professional, but sonically it sounded all right. We did go back in and sort of patch up some dodgy leads and some average backing vocals here and there, just to kind of clean it up, but not a great deal. With Prog Power's different story. I certainly felt the pressure. I'm sure everybody else felt the pressure, but it was our first ever appearance in the States, and playing on a stage in front of, I don't know how many, 1,000 odd people in this cool little auditorium. And we paid for a multicam setup as well, so we wanted to capture it properly, and yeah, all proper recordings and everything like that for audio. But we took all that home, and then I think we had to patch up some of my bass, because I don't know, it's probably a combination of shit leads and shit playing. So there's a little bit of wizardry on my bass, but and I think some of the guitar patches need to be cleaned up a little bit as well. But overall, it was a pretty good experience, and amazing to watch it back now, because we threw it up on YouTube a few months back for free, and so it's probably better. It serves us better to be out there for free. Mm-hmm. And I've watched bits and pieces of it, and you kind of just go, "Oh shit, that did happen, didn't it?" Like it's not just a weird dream that you had. Like you kind of go, "Oh yeah," and it's cool because it's timestamped now. It's not just like you've got a couple of photos and you can try and recall what happened. It's like it's there. It's like it literally happened. So super cool, and it was something that we had wanted to do for a long time, but we never. I think, especially for Tim, he's like, "I don't want to do a live album at a pub. Like I don't like. Yeah, we can do it, but." I want to, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it on a good stage. So we're running around, we're having a good time. Visually, it's something interesting to look at. And although it wasn't our show, it was part of a festival, and it wasn't, completely visually how we would like to have done it. It was a good compromise. I mean, I think it came out pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it looks great. Yeah, that's cool. So 2010, you guys put out Return of the Tyrant, and you got some unplugged versions of, Dungeon songs and Lord songs on there. And an orchestral track. How did the orchestral track come together? That's huge. Like,
yeah. I think so. Probably. Well, I think Tim's always been playing with orchestral stuff. Probably I'm just trying to think back with the dungeon stuff. I'm pretty sure he started with A Rise to Power with some of the little interlude things that he did, all the reprises, and I'm pretty sure he's had it sort of scattered in some of the subsequent albums. But going right up to, because we did Set in Stone the year before Return of the Tyrant, and so there was a lot more sort of orchestral stuff sitting in the background of some of the epic songs. And so with Return of the Tyrant, the title track, Tim wanted this to be sort of a carry on from an old dungeon song called Tyranno del Mar. So basically, it's a cheesy pirate song, but there's a bit of a sort of an ongoing story narrative in there and some little throwbacks to the original song. But he really wanted to make it cinematic and give it that sort of cinematic vibe. But like anything, when you're recording a metal song, you have to rein yourself in. You don't want to go too crazy, because otherwise it takes away from, I don't know, the metalness or just the song itself. It becomes a bit of a distraction. So for him, the way that he can scratch his itches, he just does multiple versions of the song. So we do our metal version, the main song, then we do I think we did like a radio edit, like thinking, oh yeah, like a pirate song gonna get picked up for radio. Let's make the radio disc jockeys really happy with this. But instead of like a 9-minute song, it's like a 5 or 6 minute song, really radio friendly. We did that, and then yes, the orchestral version, which basically gave Tim free reign to just go crazy with everything. So I haven't listened to that for quite a while, but I recall it being fairly epic. So yeah.
It's good. And how about the unplugged versions? How'd you sort of decide to change it up and do it unplugged?
Yeah, it wasn't intentional. So we did a tour on the previous album, and we had a run of 3 shows. We were doing Canberra, Goulburn, and Wagga Wagga. So, like big gigs. But we played the Canberra show, really great show. But we got a little bit too loose after the show, a few too many drinks. And our drummer at the time, TY, threw his back out. And I mean, big time. And so next morning, we're waking up in beautiful Canberra, and T was like, I can't drum. I can't drum at all. I cannot do it. And we're like, come on, suck it up. Maybe you can have some some Panadol or whatever. No, he was bugging. So he had to get farmed back to Sydney. And so we're like, what do we do? And we're kind of in this period of time where we're like, I don't know. I think we just had this weird confidence that we just like, we're not going to cancel shows. We're going to find a way to get around it. And I think we're also touring with another, it might have been a Sydney band, Lust, I think. It was like a hard rock band. And so anyway, we decided we're going to try and do it acoustic. We're going to do the next 2 shows acoustic, but we had no acoustic guitars. So we go to Goulburn and we find a music shop. We buy 2 of the shittest acoustic guitars, like maybe like $150 guitars or whatever they are. Yeah. And the action's super high. They just sound rubbish. And we sat around maybe at the motel that we're staying at, I think, and we just tried to play them through. Luckily, I didn't have to buy an acoustic bass. I don't think Goulburn even had any acoustic basses, to be honest. But I just luckily, bass is more or less clean, so I could just play bass. And we set up on the floor in the Tattersall pub in Goulburn and played this horrible but kind of fun acoustic show. Everyone was drunk. It was just a messy show. We're playing through this horrible little acoustic PA. But the people who were there seemed to enjoy it. I think they loved the novelty of it. And then we did the following day, we played this show in Wagga, which was it was another train wreck because we were sort of just trying to work it out. But we made it happen. We're kind of proud that we made the shows happen anyway. Sure. But I think after that, we sort of thought, hey, we kind of got away with that only just. Probably didn't, but in our heads we thought we did. I wonder, we kind of like the sound of some of these songs within a sort of acoustic sound. Let's have a stab at this. So we're looking for extra tracks to throw on this Tyrant EP, and we just came up with the idea of let's try and record some acoustic stuff. So it really there was no intention to begin with. It was basically we stuffed up. It was an absolute train wreck, and somehow we managed to turn, I don't know, lemons into lemonade, as they say. So they sound okay. I kind of listen to them and go, some songs work better than others. But I guess it's once again as you're hearing, there's a story attached to it. So when I listen to these songs, I cringe a little bit at times, but I kind of go, nah, it's kind of cool. I like it for what it is, but there's not much to it. They're all right. They're okay.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. um. So, you guys have played, a few covers over the years, and then in 2021 we got Undercovers Volume 1, 23 covers. There's, Maiden, Judas Priest, the stuff we don't expect when we would expect, but then we also get Kylie Minogue, Savage Garden. Like, how did you come about those specific songs? Like, what was that conversation?
Yeah. So I think going right back to, I guess, the first year of the band being Dungeon, um, the guys had always played covers, like especially live. They'd always had like a couple of covers in the set.
Hmm.
It was just a good thing to win the crowd over, especially when you got I don't know, like a death metal crowd or something like that. It's like, oh, can we just
Yeah,
throw
cool.
something into there, you know?
Hmm.
And so some of that stuff got recorded. And then, like as I mentioned earlier, one of the first recordings that I did was that Pantera cover. And so, yeah, we started doing like odd covers here and there, and we were releasing stuff. And we have been for quite a number of years in Japan, and the Japanese always want bonus tracks, and so we would throw a bunch of covers on as bonus tracks as well.
Hmm.
So I think when Undercovers was meant to be, I mean, it was during COVID. So I think we always were trying to think about, and I mean, it wasn't the most original idea because I think half the bands in the world did covers during COVID.
Yeah.
But we kind of looked back and thought, well, we've got to keep things moving. It's probably not a good time to do a new album. And we'd only sort of just released the last one, which kind of was bad timing because COVID happened only mere months after the release.
Hmm.
And so we thought, okay, we've got all these random covers that we've recorded over the years, and Kylie Minogue was one that we recorded probably whatever. I mean, maybe 10 years prior or something like that. And that was on Hear No Evil, where it was first on. And so we thought, let's make a compilation of all these covers. We'll clean them up and just make sure they kind of sound cohesive together, and record a couple of extra ones as well, just to give people who the hardcore fans who've got everything something fresh as well. So yeah, once we collated everything together, it's like 23 or whatever tracks. Like shit, there's a lot of songs. So the two freshies that we did was Judas Priest Reckless, which is a bit of a deep cut in some respects, and an album that most people, Judas Priest purists don't really like, being Turbo,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's pretty kick-ass album that we enjoy. And we also did, and this is in true sort of like in with the Kylie Minogue thing, we decided to cover Savage Garden's To the Moon and Back, which was a bit of a kind of half-assed joke. I think there's a guy, Chris, who he works for Triple M in Melbourne, and we were on Twitter and he's talking about it, and I sort of made a comment saying, oh, this would be an awesome metal song if someone did it. And then he sort of planted the seed saying you should do a cover. And then Tim saw it and he's like, oh, and so he went away, and so we started tinkering around and it ended up coming out. So it was good. But I mean, to be completely honest, I mean, it was meant to be something just to keep the machine moving, keep us in front of people. And so people, and more so our fans, just something to amuse them. And it was meant to be a bit of a throwaway release. But it debuted at number 1 in the Australian independent charts. I think it debuted at number 7 in the Australian ARIA charts. And it stayed in the independent charts for like 5 or 6 weeks or something like that. And we had Darren Hayes from Savage Garden shout us out and say how much he loved the cover song, which that certainly helped. And so we're kind of looking around us going, what is this whirlwind? Like, this is meant to be just having a bit of fun, taking the piss, just a bit of a throwaway release so we can get cracking on the next original music. But it took a life of its own. So, and we called it Volume 1 because we know, like, even when we were finishing it off, we already had 5 or 6 other cover songs that we just didn't have time to finish. And we thought, well, we're not going to rush these. We're not going to spit them out half-assed. So we'll just bank them for later. And then we thought, oh, well, I guess that means we're going to have a Volume 2. So we'll call this one Volume 1. So there is a Volume 2. I mean, there isn't physically a Volume 2 right now, but there will be a Volume 2 in the years to come. So there's already some tracks that are sitting there on ice at the moment. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, like about it kind of being a bit of a throwaway thing, but it catches on. That seems to be the way often, like bands' biggest songs. They're like, oh yeah, this is kind of fun, and then that's the one everyone hooks into. It's kind of a weird thing. Yeah.
Well, I love it, and it gives me. I mean, obviously they're covers, so it's a different beast altogether because you kind of you automatically can get some initial attention from people.
Yeah.
But it gives me reassurance knowing that as much as you think you know that you've got like a great song, or something strong where you think this is the song that's going to, win people over, you really don't know. You got no clue. For what I think versus what you think, we've all got subjective opinions and tastes. And so it's exciting to be able to put stuff out there and just see what sticks, and even like sometimes seeing songs get a little bit of traction 5 or 6 or even 10 years later, just randomly, somebody picks it up or somebody just discovers you through some weird place and they go, I heard this song, and you're like, oh, that song, no one's giving a shit about that song, but for whatever reason, you're telling me you love it. All right, whatever, mate. Like, it's cool. Excellent. So, yeah, it's nice. It's nice to know that, and I think the other thing I learned from this is I was always paranoid with cover songs because I think, especially in the 90s, like there's a few sort of new metal bands that were certainly taking the spotlight with cover songs, and they became famous just because of the cover song. And that was what they were known for. And I was always worried, especially when we did the Kylie song, because that sort of blew up a little bit at the time, that's all we would be known for. And it would sort of take away or distract from all this hard work that we've been doing, this legacy that Tim had been building with Dungeon and then all the Lord stuff. But the Kylie thing sort of opened our eyes. And I think the Undercovers thing sort of further validated or confirmed it, is that I think for some people, they might only know us for the covers, but so many people became hardcore fans purely because of the cover song. They listened to the cover song and thought like, hey, I like the sound. Like, I know the song. It sounds cool. They've done a good version of it. I'll listen to something else and they go, oh, wow, that actually the original stuff's really cool. So we've, even to this day, like I still have people go, oh, I discovered you because of the Kylie Minogue song. And in more recent, in the last couple of years, people go, hey, I saw the Savage Garden clip or heard the song. And now here I am buying your back catalog. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like it's not as cheap as I always used to think it was. It does work, but you have to be careful. And I think Undercover's sort of, we pushed it as far as we could. I think we really tested it. I think we were on the verge of like just probably taking it a bit too far, but it's okay. We've backed off now. So
that's cool.
Go back to the original music.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair enough. Well, it's an in, it's an in. All right. So one last thing about the covers, and then we'll move on. I'm a big real life fan. Can I put in a request for volume 2? Fingers crossed.
Sure.
I really like Send Me an Angel that you did. I'd love to hear Catch Me I'm Falling, the Lord version. I think you guys would nail that,
Tim's a massive real life fan as well. And I think like with some of those bands, like we what else we have on there? I mean, Tim's a big 80s synth pop fan. He grew up with like Duran Duran, Pseudo Echo, all that kind of stuff. And so, and like I think it's on Undercovers, of course. We did Aha on there as well. So there's a bunch of stuff like that, and some of the stuff that's sitting on ice. Not that song just yet, but I would say never because I know Tim's a massive fan. So I think all he would need is just that little nudge, and that's all it takes. So yeah, if you hear that pop up in volume 2, it's you, mate.
Excellent. Well, fingers crossed. Cool. So away from Lord for a little bit, the Andy Dowling social podcast. You did a podcast for a good 6 years there, chatting with different people. How'd that kind of come about? What made you decide to put that together?
Yeah. I think I'm just trying to think of when. So 2015.
Actually, no. You're right. It's not 6 years. It's longer than that, isn't it?
Probably. Yeah, but I mean, I haven't done it for probably 18 months. Although I think even doing these chats now with yourself, I keep reminding myself, this was a lot of fun. Like I love doing this, so I probably need to do it again soon. But I think we're in a little bit of a quiet period with the band. I think we'd just put out a release or just finished some shows, and I think everyone was sort of just distracted doing other stuff at the time. I can't remember what was going on, but I just remember thinking like, and I'd always have this feeling like every 6 months in the band since I joined, going, how long is this going to last? Is the band going to fizzle out anytime soon? What am I going to do? I've sort of creating this identity as a musician. Oh, I'm going to have to find a new band, or maybe I don't be a musician. Anyway, I started listening to a lot of podcasts, and I thought, hey, this might be just something fun to do to occupy myself in the meantime, and just sort of take myself away from any of the anxiety of having to stress about doing anything in the band or keep the band going. It's like, oh, you know, we've got to be active, we've got to be competitive, we've got to be out there playing shows. I could just park all that and just chill out and get immersed in something else. So yeah, started it off. Yeah, it must have been 2015. And I mean, look, I tried a couple of about a month ago. I tried to challenge myself to go back to episode 1 and listen to everything in order. I got to like episode 8 and I had to stop. It was just, guests were great. I was atrocious, so cringe, so hard to listen to yourself. It's hard to listen to myself now, but I was trying to find my feet, and so probably the first 6 months or so, it was a little bit clunky, but it's probably one of the best experiences I've ever had. It was probably one of the smartest. I mean, not smartest because it wasn't like I made an intentional decision, but I guess in retrospect, it's one of the smartest things I've done because I improved so many social skills, being able to converse and talk to people. And people outside my circle, like not just my mates, not just getting drunk and talking at a gig, not just talking to people about music. I mean, I was talking to people in the arts, in science, in STEM, all sorts of like just weird and wonderful people. And I got to a point where I was traveling. Like I'd just hit every capital city and just do a weekend of podcasting and just hit people up and annoy them. And then do some stuff in person in Sydney and really push myself, because a lot of it was quite daunting to sort of get in front of people and talk to people, especially people that you, well, not so much idolize, but yeah, famous people, like people that you've grown up with, household names. And so you're kind of going, I don't want to ask a dumb question. And I was also super paranoid because being an artist and doing interviews, you kind of know what the routine questions are. And I've seen other artists in particular, or other people getting interviewed, get frustrated by answering the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
So I was always super paranoid about that. So it forced me to sort of, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm amazing at it now, but I'm certainly better than when I started. And it was probably one of the biggest growth periods of my life, apart from the band. The band certainly made me grow up really quickly, but the podcast stuff was such an eye-opener on so many levels. So I've been super happy that I gave myself the opportunity, but I think other people gave me a shot and allowed me to ask lots of dumb questions over 300 odd episodes that I did just for that. And I did some offshoot podcasts as well with other themes as well. And it was just a lot of fun. So yeah, even talking it through now, I'm like, yeah, shit, I need to pull my finger out and probably do this again.
That's good to hear, man. Yeah. Yeah, they'll definitely be good to have it back, man. That's cool. Yeah. And the other thing, you run Andy's Social Records. I got the Venomous Concept CD off you recently, and it came. Here's a review, everyone. Get some stuff from Andy. It's all in good nick. It came with basketball cards and stickers and things, and I even got a YouTube video.
Hey Ben, thank you very much for supporting my Discog store and picking up the Venomous Concept CD.
Response and all sorts. So yeah, that's good stuff, man. How long you been running the Discog store for?
Yeah, I think I mean, I've been a massive music collector for years. Like since I don't know, since I got into music, I was obsessed with collecting, trying to finish, a whole discography of a band, even the shit albums, trying to find different variants, all that sort of stuff. I love going sort of, what would you call, like, record crate diving, in shops and all that sort of stuff. And I started like cataloging everything on Discogs for my personal collection. And then after a while, I think I had a couple of doubles and I thought, I might try and sell a few things. And then I don't know, I think there might have just been a few different things in life that changed. And I sort of looked at my collection and thought, there's heaps of cool stuff that I've got that I want to keep, but there's a lot of stuff that I've just got purely out of some sort of weird OCD sort of completist sort of perspective. And some of these CDs are never opened, or you would do the traditional open it up, chuck it in your disk drive, digitize it, then put it back on the shelf and not touch it. So I just started just selling stuff just to get a bit of extra, I don't know, pocket money. And then it kind of manifested over the last couple of years in particular. And well, it's become a little bit of a beast that's continuing to grow. I'll scour the globe finding collections, and I buy stuff off mates and people I know, and people who just want to declutter and don't see the value, which is kind of funny because people don't see the value in CDs anymore. And I get that. And I think the good thing about Discogs is that you can find those people who do find that value.
Yeah.
And so I've enjoyed doing that. It does make me a little bit of money, which is good. But I kind of see that as a bonus. The best thing about it is I get to totally immerse myself in this nerd culture of music, the variants, the matrix runs on these CDs and the vinyl and everything. I get to totally nerd out on that stuff. And as you said, when somebody orders, like I do these cheesy thank you videos, I dump in like I've got a box of like stickers here, like the dumbest stickers. I'm a massive basketball fan from way back, so I've got stacks and stacks of old school doubles of NBL and NBA basketball cards. And then I've got like old Lord flyers and show flyers and like boxes of like crap that I was a hoarder like for so many years, but like, and so I just add all these little things in there, and it's just so much fun because I end up making so many friends. I mean, we wouldn't be doing this podcast more than likely had you not bought that CD from me as well, which is super cool. So, I don't see. I think if anything, out of everything that I have been and involved with, this one seems to be the most solid and stable and the strongest. I mean, probably the band, probably a little bit more, but yeah, it's not going away anytime soon. It's ramping up. I've got more boxes of garbage coming soon that I'll be putting up, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's cool. And just listening wise, what have you been checking out lately? What are you listening to?
Listening. I think this year in particular, I've really tried to stay on top of new stuff coming through. So I've got all these weird OCD things. Like I won't even like open. I won't even dive down the rabbit hole of all the things that I do. Like just my wife just gives me shit about all the spreadsheets I have for all these different things, this wacky stuff. But so there's a couple of main things that I do from a listening point of view, and you might find this bemusing, but one of them is when I sell stuff on Discogs because I can't physically listen to everything. If it's on Spotify, because I've got a subscription on Spotify, I will find it. I'll save it in my liked playlist, and I will listen to my liked playlist on shuffle or whatever it might be. And I think at the moment there's probably like 16,000 songs on there, so I'm never going to ever finish this damn thing. But like I'll sell, and I don't sell just metal. Like I'm selling metal stuff, but I just had an order yesterday for a Lee Kernaghan CD. I'm like, why the hell have I got a Lee Kernaghan CD? But I put it up there and someone's bought it. Yeah. So now, unfortunately, Lee Kernaghan's going to show up on shuffle after, I don't know, like, Incantation or something like that. It's just the way that it is. But it's kind of fun. Sometimes you just cringe through the day and go, oh my God, what's this garbage? Mm-hmm. But with new stuff, I've each week there's a guy on Twitter, and he's on Instagram. His name's or his handle's K-Man Riffs. And every Friday he does this massive dump of new metal releases. So I'm constantly following him, and I will save stuff on Spotify, and I've got like a 2023 shit to listen to playlist. And then the stuff that I like out of that, I then shortlist that into my Andy's picks for 2023. And then I've got that as a public playlist that a few people follow. And, yeah, I mean, there's been some really, really cool stuff. I've been really surprised with a lot of hardcore bands. I know hardcore's become this big trendy thing at the moment, but I've been sucked in. Like I've really been enjoying a lot of that stuff that's been coming through. There's a Terminal Sleep from Melbourne, just insane. Like I've been blown away by them. There was also, and I probably won't even be able to pronounce their name anyway. Is it Melancholia from Melbourne? And they're kind of like death metal, hardcore, but they're really, really cool. I've been listening to so much death metal, by the way. Like for whatever, I think death metal's just got this resurgence at the moment. It's just insane, and they sound so good. Like I was listening to the end. Sorry, I'll probably be talking for hours about all the stuff I've been listening to. But the band from Poland called God Slut, and I just laughed at the name because I thought it was so absurd. This name, I thought I'll have to give this band a listen. They probably sound like balls. Anyway, amazing. Paid Absolution, great song. Really, really good song. Great album. That God Slut album. But there's some good Aussie stuff. Low released a really cool album, The Gleaners. What else have we got here? Really, really quickly. I need to shout out another Aussie band somewhere here. Misarthium, I think. I always pronounce their name wrong, but really cool atmospheric sort of black metal kind of stuff. Ishua from Melbourne, they're really, really cool. And I know they're the flavor of the month at the moment, but Voyager's new album comes out next week, and I've been a little fanboy of theirs for quite a number of years. They're good friends, and I've yeah, I don't know. I'm probably just so biased these days that they could probably just release a steaming pile of shit, and I'll still go, it's so good. It's so good. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I'm really trying hard to stay on top of it because I called this out about a year ago, sort of living in this somewhat post-COVID world. I said there's too many bands that have been sitting on songs. Like they have been able to tour, they've been writing and recording. The next couple of years, it's going to be total saturation of new music. It's going to be great for music fans. It's going to be really tough for artists because they've got to try and find ways to cut through this noise. And it's exciting, but I think it's just a different type of challenge. So I'm just trying to stay on top of as much as I can, and I've just been really enjoying it because I think as much as people, you hear all the old cliches about rock is dead, or music's dying, or creativity, or everything's artificial these days, or whatever it might be, any sort of negative connotations about the music industry or artists. If you listen to bands these days, shit, I mean, we're going through another golden era of heavy music in general, but I think there's just so many bands doing amazing stuff at the moment, and it hasn't stopped. But I feel at the moment it's really, really strong. So yeah, if anyone's keen, I'll give you my Spotify playlist. You can have a look at some of the stuff, and you'll probably go, "Oh, what's that garbage, Andy?" But there's some good stuff. Trust me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I do the same. I've been doing it for about 4 years. I've got a 2023 list, and the album goes on there and shuffle. And then if I hear something, I listen to the whole thing and generally purchase it, like get a physical. Like it's
the best.
How else do you get through it? Like there's so much out there. Like
you just forget. It's so hard to stay on top of it. And I guess that's I know a lot of people shit on Spotify and streaming and things like that. And I don't think it is the solution to music, but I think it's a great tool and it can be used in really positive ways if people look at it from the right angle. And I think it's such a great way to stay in touch. I think so. It's not the thing that saves music or keeps music going, but it's pretty cool. And even as an artist, it has a lot of benefits. So. But I won't get into a Spotify discussion. That could be in its own podcast.
Yeah, yeah. So Sedition, obviously it wrapped up. Is there any chance? You're probably flat out, but is there any chance Sedition could happen again at some point?
Well, Sinclair, who is the mastermind, he's kind of like the Tim of Sedition, and that's been his baby since day dot. They did put out an album after I moved on, which was called World of Illusion, and it's pretty cool. It's very, very Maiden, Queensryche vibes, but I think it was one of those albums. It's a typical sort of, and it was no fault of theirs, but it was a very typical sort of independent release where there probably wasn't a lot of, and this is my perspective on the outside. I don't know what they were actually thinking, but it didn't appear that they were putting a lot of thought into how they would release it, what they would do, how to promote it, and all that sort of stuff. And they weren't really a touring band. They only played a handful of live shows. So it kind of just fizzled out very quickly and was forgotten. And I'm pretty sure he's probably sitting on boxes of CDs at his house. And I think I've asked him before to say, hey, give me some stock. And I'm pretty sure he sent me some CDs a while back, but they're long gone now. But I think for him, I haven't spoken to him for a little while, but I think he's always sort of tinkering with the idea of continuing to do music. But I don't know. It might be a long shot. But it'd be cool to see. I mean, they were certainly, it's one of those bands where they had all the potential and all the moving pieces to do something great. But I think even at that stage, I was the baby in the band. I mean, I think they were already in their late 30s. Well, yeah, possibly. I think they were pretty much already in their late 30s when I was in the band. So they were already getting domesticated, as we all tend to do when we hit 30 plus. So they were already starting to wind down. They'd already had their sort of time, playing the local circuit, playing in different incarnations of the band. So I think they're probably past that date, but who knows? I mean, I probably should shoot him a message and give him a nudge, ask him.
Yeah. Cool. So back to Lloyd. You're not far off 20 years. playing with Lord. I mean, that's what's the secret? You know what I mean? Not many bands last that long, you know.
There's a lot of mental, a lot of brain damage over the years. That's for sure. Oh, God. I mean, I used to. I mean, I still say it. It's very cliche, but being in a band's like having multiple girlfriends, but just without the sex part. But there's constant compromise, there's constant bickering, there's constant
Yeah,
fighting. And one thing that I had to get over myself was I always kind of, I think when you're in a band in your teens or in your early 20s, everyone's more or less on the same page. You're all at the same point of time in life. You're going through the same experiences. You don't have as many responsibilities. And so you tend to be very close knit, very mates. You hang out together, not just playing, but you spend time together partying and doing lots of different things. Um, but what, and that was kind of the band, even though Tim was older than us. Over the years, I mean, we don't we all live somewhat close in the grand scheme of things, but we're still like kind of an hour or 2 hours sort of apart from each other. But we don't catch up. Like we hardly catch up. We're all close and we're good friends, but we're not that close bum buddy sort of mates sort of thing that a lot of other bands have been, or what I used to think a band would always be until the day we die. So we had to go through different incarnations of the band and how to make sure that the band continued to function. And as life hits us from different angles, we get married or we have kids or whatever it might be, careers and mortgages and whatever, the usual things. I think we learned that the band never has to stop. The band can slow down. It can sit behind the scenes for a bit, but we don't ever have to go, hey, big announcement, we're going on hiatus or we're going to break up or whatever it is. Like it's not necessary. So, and I always would say this sort of comparison, like when I would look at my record collection or my CD collection, I would see a band and I'd look at those albums that I've collected in their back catalog. And you look at the years in between, and there'd be like 5 or 6 years in between studio albums. And you'd sort of think, well, now, like 20 or 30 years on, I don't care what they did in that void in between. I mean, maybe they toured nonstop. Think they all went off and did something else for 5 or 6 years and came back. I don't know. I don't care because it's long gone. And so I think we all sort of reminded ourselves that we can go at our own pace. If we can't do something, then that's totally cool. If it takes an extra 6 months to do something, like, we're working on new music now that we were hoping would be out this year. But we knew that we were probably going to compromise the final product. And so we just said, no, 12 months, push it back. So we can do it properly. And that didn't phase any of us. We're just like, yeah, cool, whatever. Like we're not going anywhere.
yeah.
And especially these days, we haven't played for a long time, partly because of COVID, but we're not a big touring band anymore either. So we can function. We've got a great remote setup. Everyone can interact and record and share stuff remotely as well. So it's just a different version of the band to what I initially had. So going back to what you said about the secret, I think what I see and a lot of mates over the years, a lot of peers who play in bands, especially these bands that no longer exist, I think a lot of them have gone through that identity crisis of what am I doing with my life, or watched the personalities or the interests or the passion start to divide within the band. And I think rather than just slowing down and giving everyone the opportunity to breathe and take the pressure off everyone to perform or to be going away on tour or to sacrifice their relationships or their careers or whatever it might be, rather than putting all that pressure on people and then eventually just going, well, we're going to break up, which is what most, especially Australian bands, my God, like that's one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, why are you breaking up? Just stop doing stuff for a while. Like, there's no need to break up. You can disappear for 6-7 years and just go, hey, we're still here,
Yeah.
So I just say, like, there's just, you've got all the time in the world. So yeah, for us, it's just watching the band evolve and change over the years. But in the end, Lord as it is still exists, and what happens behind the scenes might change or how we do it. But from your average punter's perspective who buys our music, they're just waiting for the next release. And if they get to see us, then that's a bonus as well. But otherwise, I mean, what happens day to day, they probably don't really care too much. And so we probably shouldn't either.
Yeah. Nice, man. Awesome. Well, look, Andy, thanks heaps for your time. It's been awesome to chat. And yeah, when it comes, I'm looking forward to the next Lord release. Man.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, awesome, man. All right, have a good one, eh?
You too.
Cheers.